So no tornado warning for Lake County, but you do have this severe thunderstorm warning now in effect until 1:30. And Tracy has these showers, and basically it's tough to call them thunderstorms because there really isn't a lot of lightning with them. But as this area of stormy weather slides to the south and east, we'll have the potential there for some very high winds and maybe a few brief spin-up tornadoes. So that's what we'll be watching. I'll just do a quick track on this as it moves off towards the east-southeast into parts of Lake County here. So we're talking Antioch around 1251, Lake Villa at 1257, then up towards Kenosha around 105. So when you look at that velocity data, Tracy, it's really kind of clear those little signatures that we're seeing on the velocity data that recognize the potential for some spin, which could prompt a tornado.
You know what, Larry? You brought up lightning, and I'm looking at lightning detection here over on our main computer, and it's not something that we are seeing really much of at all. And so that's why this can be a little bit confusing and kind of catch folks off guard, because you're thinking, hey, wait a minute, I don't really see nor hear anything that would signify a major thunderstorm or anything like that. But as you so pointed out, Larry, the problem has been the potential for these winds with the colder air aloft, and you do get some of this rotation that's occurring. It's weak rotation at that, but rotation nonetheless that has prompted that severe thunderstorm warning. So you talked once again, not just the severe thunderstorm warning, the tornado warning, but the severe thunderstorm warning that we talked about in Lake County that was just added, and that is now in effect until 1:30 this afternoon. I do want you to be prepared for this if you live in Lake County, Waukegan, Lake Villa, Libertyville, even up toward Winthrop Harbor and Waukegan. This does stay in effect for you, and the Weather Service, and in fact, they're even talking about that if a tornado were to occur within any of these areas under a severe thunderstorm warning or the tornado warning, they are saying it would be on the very weak side and may develop with very little warning. So that's why we're kind of catching you at this time, and you're saying, wait a minute, the severe weather? What are we talking about here? It doesn't seem like a severe weather kind of day out there. And it's very, very interesting that we are getting this sort of issue, I would say, on a day like this. But we do have a very strong cold front, and I will tell you, you're going to notice what that cold front is going to bring us in the coming days. It is going to get much colder around here in the coming days. I want to check because I see the tornado warning is flashing now. I'm going to check with Larry. Larry, are you seeing any update to the tornado warning as we are getting that blinking red there? I'm seeing that they just kind of shaved off the western part of Racine and Kenosha, as well as eastern Walworth County. So as that continues to race to the east, I think we're going to notice this continuing to kind of be eroded off to the west as far as that tornado warning box is concerned.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Tracy. You know, if you look at the velocity data, we'll go to the other computer here, and you can see where those areas that I highlighted where you get the rotation, and I'll point them out again. There's a couple little notches showing up. One's right here. The one that was a little farther to the south looks like it may have kind of dissipated. But as this line, which kind of indicates where the gusty winds are located with this little thunderstorm, that's the area where once that clears out of the box area, they kind of trim back the tornado warning. So that updated box you saw flashing across parts of Racine and Kenosha here, that was and they're just kind of updated again. That's kind of a trimming back of the location of where the high winds are. So what the Weather Service is doing, and they do this very well, and they have a good way of kind of alerting people, is they're tracking right here this leading edge of the winds that have the potential for some brief spin-up tornadoes. And as that moves out of the area that was under the warning, they clear that area. So it's really a way to let people know that once the threat for a tornado passes your area, you're cleared from the warning. So they do that in almost real time as the storm evolves and passes through, and that's what we're seeing right here. The other thing which I find very fascinating about these little thunderstorms, Tracy, is they're not very tall. In fact, look at this. They're not even up to 20,000 feet in height. These are very small. We call them low-topped showers and thunderstorms, and they just really don't have great great extent up into the atmosphere, but they have enough of that low-level wind energy that when we get these high winds like we're seeing, combined with a little kind of a backing of the winds down at the surface, so it creates kind of a little spin in the atmosphere at the lowest levels, and sometimes that can be just enough to produce these brief tornadoes. You mentioned it a second ago how really the main concern here is for high winds upwards of 60 miles per hour and a few brief spin-up tornadoes along those gusty winds. So if you can kind of picture in your head, when you get a big gust of wind coming out of a thunderstorm, you know, the trees bend, the rain comes down harder, it comes down horizontally in some cases when you get those high winds. Well, picture with those gusts of high winds that you could see little spin-up, little vortices, little tornadoes along those gusty winds. And that's basically the setup in the atmosphere that we're dealing with here today, is that along that leading edge of those winds, there's these little notches, which the radar, I mean, it really does a fantastic job of kind of pointing them out to us. There's one there may be another one up here. They don't last very long, but those little notches are the signs we look for any indication of rotation. And they, as I mentioned, they're very brief, and I'll just go back in time and you kind of see the evolution of a few of these as they move into Kenosha and Racine here right now. You can see they just kind of spin up and then they kind of fade away. So far they've remained north of the state line, but as we look down into parts of McHenry and Lake County, you can see you're under severe thunderstorm warnings for this line of storms, which will eventually head in your direction. And it does pack the possibility here of winds to 60 miles per hour. Tracy, the other thing with the storms being so what we call kind of low top, they don't have much height to them. They're not really big rain producers. They'll spit out some brief heavy rain, but it's really the wind threat which is our main concern with this entire line.
Yeah, and the wind threat, not just the wind threat, but you know, we were talking about the wind threat, straight line winds, as well as the potential for maybe a little rotation, which you have been citing very well on velocity. But something I also want to point out to you, we are monitoring possibly a few areas of very weak rotation associated with these showers out to the west of Chicago. And I'm talking maybe out around the Fox Valley region in Kane, Kendall, DeKalb, and LaSalle counties. If we go to the main computer right now, and I show you the radar, I want to reassure you we don't have any severe thunderstorm warnings in Kane County, nor in DeKalb, nor in LaSalle. But just like we've been monitoring very closely with this line of showers, and I know, Larry, it's so strange. It's hard to say thunderstorms because I keep checking lightning detection and there just isn't much lightning at all. And as you've said, these are very low topped storms. We're not getting certainly much in the way of lightning at all. And as I also mentioned, we're not getting really much in the way of heavy rain. Something else that we are monitoring, because there are reports around let's see, the Twin Lakes, Wisconsin area of some very strong straight line winds. And I talked about that earlier. These could possibly even brush northern Lake County here on the Illinois side. And that's why you do have that severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 1:30 this afternoon in Lake County. So those of you in Waukegan, as well as Lake Villa, in Libertyville, that's why you do have that severe thunderstorm warning in effect for you. But we continue to, again, shave off that tornado warning, which is really good news for folks up in portions of southern Wisconsin. I don't want to turn my back on the radar here on the Illinois side at all, because as I said, we are watching for you kind of this line. It's been so very tricky, this line of showers, and it looks like absolutely nothing that we're seeing as far as this line of showers down towards Sandwich into, I would say, Ottawa. And it doesn't look like much. And that's been the problem with this whole setup all along. None of this really looks like much, but because of the cold air aloft, which you talked about, Larry, we do get the potential for just maybe a little bit of circulation, a weak little spin-up tornado that's possible. Larry, I just want to check with you, see if there's anything that you're seeing that maybe I am not right now.
No, you got it all there, Tracy. You know, it's really interesting with this line that's coming through. We've got it's a gusty winds, maybe a brief tornado spinning up along the line and some brief downpours. It extends all the way down into parts of LaSalle County, but so far the worst of the weather has been across southern Wisconsin and up here across McHenry and now pushing into Lake County. The purple box you see on the outline map here, that's the tornado warning. These are the severe thunderstorm warnings, and I've been really watching the velocity data pretty closely here, and right here, that leading edge, and I was pointing out a few moments ago, it's very jagged. You don't like to see that. That means there's some spin going on along that leading gust front where the winds are rushing out ahead of the thunderstorm, or even right underneath the thunderstorm itself. And whenever you get that little spin, that's the areas where there could be a brief spin up tornado. So we're watching a couple of spots here, still north of the state line. As Tracy was mentioning, there are a few areas farther to the south that have a little suspicion to them where you got to keep an eye on them. But at this point, the only ones that look like they could potentially spin up a tornado would be up here across parts of Kenosha and Racine counties. And you can see them moving off towards the east. They're getting close to the state line, especially that one right here. So let's go in just a little bit closer on the radar just to take a closer peek at this one here. This is just north of Antioch, heading towards Pikeville, Woodworth as well. So just north of the state line here, just to the east of 75 and approaching 45 right now. Once you get north of Pikeville, that's an area where there's could possibly be a brief little spin up tornado, and that's moving off towards the east here. So if you're north of the state line, and we've got some viewers up this way, just take your tornado precautions right now and let this storm pass by. It'll be moving off towards the east here towards Woodworth, Pikeville, eventually over towards Pleasant Prairie as well, up here just north of the state line. So that's one little spot where we're concerned about a potential spin up of a tornado. The other area here, what's is kind of interesting as well, is you see these little yellow and orange markers on the velocity data. Those are indicative of areas where we're getting some high winds. The velocity data there, where the radar measures the speed of the raindrops, could be up around 50 miles per hour. So gusty winds for sure with this line of rain, and a potential for an isolated spin-up tornado right here across the southern parts of Kenosha County, just north of the state line. Tracy, the line itself is moving off towards the east at about 35 to 40 miles per hour. And a lot of people are saying it is cold outside. It's too cold to have tornadoes. But when you get this much wind in the atmosphere and you get enough spin along this line, you can see these little brief spin up tornadoes. And I think that's really going to be the concern for at least the next couple of hours, especially across the northern half of the area and especially up here in southern Wisconsin.
Thank you, Larry. You know what? Terrell has given me some information. You were talking about Walworth County.
Yeah, because Tracy, that's where the warnings first started on the back end of the 11 a little bit earlier on this morning, and that's the Delavan area, Whitewater.
Right.
And getting a report now, this just came in from county officials out there. No reports of a tornado touching down anywhere in Walworth County. They do have tree limbs, branches, and wires down. Also, no reports of any injuries at this point. Also checked in with Racine and Kenosha County Emergency Management. Also not reporting any damage out there right now, but on alert and keeping eyes to the skies as we speak.
Terrell, thank you so much. Thank you. We really appreciate you being here to check out that information. And Larry was talking about, getting into your safe place. And so what is that when a tornado warning is issued or has been spotted on radar? And again, we haven't had anything really spotted. It has all been radar indicated. You want to get into the lowest level of the structure that you are in to seek shelter immediately, and especially in a sturdy building, and stay away from windows. I want to go back to some of the information that I am getting from the Weather Service office, because I mentioned to you, we certainly don't want to turn our backs on the Illinois side here, and we're watching very closely what is going on here on the Illinois side. And it's from McHenry to Elgin. With this line of showers, and I'm calling it showers. I can't really call these thunderstorms. We're not really getting much in the way of lightning. We are getting showers, and there have been wind gusts that have been picking up. In fact, we're getting reports from McHenry, as I mentioned, back toward the Sandwich area, some wind gusts of 20 to 30 miles per hour, even some higher gusts up to 40 miles per hour. That's been our concern all along, is the potential for these very strong gusty winds. Let's see, severe and in fact, this just in, the Weather Service has just canceled the severe thunderstorm warning in McHenry County. So that's a little bit of good news. Can breathe a sign of relief. But something I bet you may be noticing in McHenry County right now, I bet you may be noticing a temperature drop. Very, very possible that we're seeing these temperatures falling, a very abrupt change in the wind direction, and abrupt change in the temperatures as well. So along with these very strong wind gusts too, but we are going to notice the severe thunderstorm warning that will expire in McHenry County, but we're going to keep it around across the northern half basically of Lake County. Let's go back to the radar here and check out what we are seeing. And once again, I keep repeating kind of the same thing in that it's been a little bit misleading, because when you look at the radar, it's not that impressive. It doesn't look like we have any major severe weather. And while we don't, we still have the potential for these little spin up tornadoes, which can result in some downed trees, some downed power lines, which certainly can cause inconvenience nonetheless. We're still watching, and Larry was talking about kind of that jagged edge on the velocity signature off to the north, but we're also monitoring. We had reports from the Weather Service about these strong straight line winds maybe being ushered into the northern part of Lake County here on the Illinois side. Let's see, continuing the severe thunderstorm warning, and in fact they will continue that in Lake County until 1:30 this afternoon for the potential of 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, maybe even some hail at this point. I want to go back to Larry. Larry, any updates that you have for us on anything maybe new that you are seeing, or maybe old?
Yeah, you know, Tracy, we've been looking at the temperature pattern here, and just look at the difference here in the temperatures. It drops quickly into the 50s, even low 50s behind that area of rain. Head of the rain, we're still in the 60s, but of course right now, the tornado warning up here across parts of Racine and Kenosha counties, it's still in effect until 1 o'clock, and it continues to get trimmed back. We've mentioned that as we've gone through the course of the afternoon here. As the threat of a tornado kind of shifts out of the warning area, they quickly trim it back, and you can see just this area outlined in the purple box is the area of concern for a potential tornado. The other area of rain that's now moving towards Lake Villa right now, this area here could produce some gusty winds, and you're still under a severe thunderstorm warning here for Lake County until 1:30. The warning back here for McHenry County has been cleared. The box will drop off here any moment, but the severe thunderstorm warning continues right here across parts of McHenry County as that area of rain shifts off towards the east. And again, the threat would be for some high winds and maybe a brief spin-up tornado. So when we look over at the velocity data, and this has been a really helpful tool for us to kind of spot these areas where there's a little bit of rotation. Little spot right here, maybe still something going on here. I was highlighting that just a few moments ago. Let me zoom in closer to that area, because there still might be a little something suspicious going on here right over 45, just north of the state line, north of Pikeville. So something may be trying to develop in this area. Again, if there is a tornado, it's really fast. It's pretty weak if we are to see one, and then it would kind of dissipate as it moves off towards the east. Tracy, I am looking too at some of the velocity data coming out here across parts of McHenry County, and it looks still a little jagged. Don't like to see this over Round Lake Beach. There might be some signs here that there could be something trying to kind of usher in maybe a brief rotation marker here between Lake Villa and Round Lake Beach. So that's a spot we're going to have to keep an eye on as well. No warning with that area in terms of a tornado warning. But I go back to this, Tracy, and you look at these showers, they're so small in height. They only go up about 10 to 20,000 feet. That's it. So they're not the traditional springtime supercell thunderstorms that we see. This is certainly a different type of environment than what we typically see with severe weather, but nonetheless, the threat is there for some very high winds and also some brief spin-up tornadoes. When you look at the winds too, let me just put the wind gust on here as well. We're seeing winds gusting upwards of 35 to even 40 miles per hour out ahead of the rain. Even across the city, we're getting some gusts up to 35 miles per hour. So blustery conditions, and then once that rain moves through, it turns sharply colder with temperatures dropping quickly into the lower 50s. But Tracy, the one thing that we'll keep an eye on here is that part of the rain complex across parts of Lake County where we still have the severe thunderstorm warning, and then that tornado warning up here across Kenosha County. Looks like the tornado threat is moving out of Racine right now and kind of focusing on the eastern part of Kenosha County. That's where we're still concerned for a brief spin-up tornado.
Thank you very much, Larry. And Phil Schwartz is also here in the ABC7 Weather Center, and he's kind of keeping an eye on things as well, the National Weather Service office report. So he'll let us know if he's seeing anything new. We just did get some word out of Milwaukee that there has been some damage, possibly attributed to a tornado up that direction. But I do want to track this line because I want you to be aware of where you're about to get in on some of these potentially very strong winds. So in Aurora, in Naperville, in Downers Grove, as this line is really racing to the east, I would anticipate within probably the next half hour, you are going to see that. I think these times are a bit off right there, but I would say within most likely the next 15 minutes to about 30 minutes, racing off to the east is where we are going to see that line of showers. And I still say showers. We're not seeing a lot as far as lightning or storms. And as Larry pointed out, kind of that back edge of that tornado warning continues to get adjusted, readjusted. We have the severe thunderstorm warning in effect to account for the potential for maybe some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts across the northern portion of Lake County. So again, it's that time, if you're under that tornado warning in Kenosha County, to take your tornado safety precautions. I'm going to just yell back to Phil very quickly. And Phil, I'm just wondering if you are hearing or seeing anything, any damage reports or any new information coming into the ABC7 Weather Center. I believe Phil has a microphone available. No microphone?
Justice 43 miles per hour in Sugar Grove. That's about it.
Okay, Sugar Grove, 43-mile-per-hour wind gust, and that's what I was talking about with that line coming on through. So once again, we point out this is the line, and we are watching for that is going to kind of get in the way over the next hour or so. We don't have any severe thunderstorm warnings nor tornado warnings any farther south than what you're seeing in Lake County. This is still set to expire at 1:30 this afternoon with that tornado warning up in the eastern part of Kenosha County. Those of you in Walworth County, no longer, you're kind of exempt from the tornado warning for now, but you are getting falling temperatures. You are still getting some gusty winds up that way, and definitely noticing a switch in that wind direction compared to what we had. Larry keeps pointing out kind of this jagged little edge, that line right there. We talked about the straight line wind possibility of maybe 40, 50, or 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. That's why the Weather Service issued that severe thunderstorm warning in McHenry County for the potential for wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. And maybe even some incidents of hail. I'm not hearing a lot of hail reports at this moment. I want to check back with Larry and see if Larry, by the way, are you hearing of any other hail reports? We may have had one or two, but I haven't seen many in what I have been watching.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen many either, Tracy. You know, when you get a storm like this where it's not very high up into the atmosphere, the hailstones don't really have a chance to grow very large. So we are seeing some small hail with these storms, but nothing terribly significant that would, cause damage from hail. It's certainly the wind and the brief tornado threat that's still the biggest threat here with these little areas of showers moving through. They just updated the warning here for Kenosha. You can see the box right there, that red box. That's the zone now where there's still the potential for a brief spin-up tornado. This is moving towards the town of Kenosha right now, and southern areas south of Kenosha here, that's where we could still see a brief spin-up tornado. This tornado warning still in effect for just 5 more minutes because the area of threat here that may produce a brief spin-up tornado will likely move out over the lake, probably at least in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So when you look at that velocity data, which as Tracy was looking at a few seconds ago, I mean, it's really been a vital tool for us to kind of spot these little areas of rotation. And there is still a little bit of a notch here just outside of Kenosha. Maybe another one right along the state line here, just crossing the state line. There could be potentially another little area of spin that's trying to develop. I'll just go in closer to that area here. So this is right along Russell Road and 94 here and I-41 over towards Delaney Road as well. That's another spot here where we might be seeing some signs that there could be a little spinning going on with that gusty wind front coming out ahead of the rain. So these are just areas to keep in mind of where the possibility is there for a brief spin up tornado. And the Weather Service was mentioning this earlier. And I know, Tracy, we've been talking about it too, that these spin up tornadoes will have very little warning with them other than the broad warning we see, because they'll kind of spin up quickly and then kind of dissipate pretty quickly as well. But it's the wind threat and the brief spinning tornado threat that is the concern here with this line of rain coming on through. The other thing, which Tracy highlighted as well, is this line extends all the way down here into LaSalle County. The only portion, though, that is really producing the high winds and the tornado threat is up across northern Lake County and then into southern Wisconsin. But behind that, it certainly turns quite a bit colder, and our winds are very gusty. St. Charles has a gust now to 43 miles per hour, so there are some very high winds packed in within that area of rain. And if you go back to the radar, let me just go back here to the radar, you can see that area of rain is now moving pretty much right over St. Charles. So as this core of the rain shifts over top of where you live, you could get some gust upwards of 45, maybe even 50 mile per hour wind gust as that marches off towards the east. And of course, up to the north is where we have that threat for maybe a few brief spin up tornadoes. Just looking at our future radar here, this area of rain that's out to the west right now will take a little time to sweep through. In fact, let me just step through time here, and you can see as we head towards 2 o'clock, here's 1:55, 2 o'clock. The line of rain will be over the city, stretching down towards Joliet, and then it really won't be until, say, 3:30, 4 o'clock or so until it's completely out of our area. So we've got a couple hours with these gusty rain showers coming through, Tracy, and the threat for some more high winds. But at this point, the only tornado warning we have is up there in parts of Kenosha County. And you can see how the box has continued to get smaller here, just the eastern part of Kenosha County and then parts of Lake County under the severe thunderstorm warning.
And Larry, you pointed out the wind gusts. I'm going to revisit that once again, because what I want everybody to know, even at Midway, out at O'Hare, where we're getting wind gusts 20 miles per hour and 25 miles per hour, you see that wind gust in Aurora, 43 miles per hour. I do think we could still see farther to the east, even right here in the city. I think we'll get that wind shift over the next hour or so, and we could see some of those elevated wind gusts coming into the city during that time as well. And in fact, let's look at the temperatures, because we've been talking about how you may notice a sharp temperature drop. So right now it's 64 at O'Hare, but look at this. It's 51 degrees out in Aurora, 50 in DeKalb. So a lot of times when we get these buildups of those summer thunderstorms, and you go from a really, really warm and juicy air mass to something that's maybe slightly cooler, we're starting to get into somewhat colder air that's going to be coming our way, which you'll really notice in the coming days. Let's go back to the radar and take a look-see at that and see what we can see. Because on the radar, as Larry was talking, we can see that there are showers, there are some thunderstorms that are, we really even haven't had a lot in the way of thunderstorms per se. What we have had are these showers and this cold front that's coming our way that have just really moved into this atmosphere, creating the potential for these little spin-up tornadoes that we've been talking about. But I do definitely want to reference the fact that we have this line that's coming our way, and we're not quite done with rain here in Chicago. We're going to see this coming into the area over the coming hours. And I really think that probably as we get closer to about 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're going to see more in the way of some of that rain coming into the city as this is moving to the east at about 40 miles per hour. So let's go back to the severe thunderstorm warning. Check that out, because it's still in effect across McHenry County, just the most eastern, slightest part of McHenry County until, well, it should be expiring very shortly. But Lake County is where we're really focusing that severe thunderstorm warning in effect now until 1:30 this afternoon. We've wanted to stay on the air with you, especially when we do have a tornado warning that is in effect. And I'm looking to see if we're getting any updates on that. Not at this time. We still have that tornado warning in effect in Kenosha County until, let's see, it keeps getting shaved back. Every single time we go back to look at it, it keeps getting eroded. And right now, in effect, So the tornado warning until 1:15. So we have about 10 more minutes. Terrell has some more information for us.
Speaking of Kenosha County, reached out to the sheriff there at the Office of Emergency Management, talked to him about 45 minutes ago, said that there wasn't a whole lot going on at the time. We reached back out within the last 10 or 15 minutes or so, and he said that they're following the forecast. They're actually watching you guys right now. Watching that line of weather move through. No touchdowns to report into their office right now. Still warning folks and giving everybody a heads up of what's going on out there right now. In Salem, Wisconsin, the sirens are going off, but no reports of damage there. Burlington, also no reports of tornado damage at this point. And of course, want to go back to Walworth County, Tracy, where this all began. Back half of the 11 a.m. hour with that tornado warning. Got a report from the lieutenant there that says no reports of tornadoes touching down there anywhere in Walworth County. And thankfully, tree limbs, branches, and wires down. I think we got some video that we're just getting in now. High winds coming in, and this is near Lake Geneva. And the viewer was wondering if this was one of those scenarios of one of those potential dust-up tornadoes that you all have been referencing. And you can see the low clouds there, Tracy.
Yeah, and I could actually see what appeared to be something, a little spin up right there. You can see a little bit of rotation almost as we're getting that wind shift taking place and taking shape. What you don't see there, you don't see any lightning, you don't see really heavy rain, and that's why this has been kind of a whole misleading system through the morning hours and into the afternoon. That being said, we still have the tornado warning. Terrell, thank you so much for those updates. We have the tornado warning still in effect, just this little eastern sliver of Kenosha County until 1:15 this afternoon. Still no longer McHenry County, but in Lake County, we still have a severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect there. I do want to go back to our other studio with Larry right now and check in with Larry to see if he has any updates that I haven't had a chance to see just yet.
Yeah, you know, Tracy, when you look at that video, it just kind of illustrates just how turbulent the atmosphere is at this point with the motion of the clouds that you saw from that video. Just a new update here on the severe thunderstorm warning. You can see the flashing box for parts of Lake County. This is to trim it back a little bit. As you can see, if you're just to the western part of the county, you're now out of the warning, but the new severe thunderstorm warning continues here until 1:30. So it continues for this area from Zion to Waukegan over towards Beach Park, down towards Lake Forest, Libertyville. You're included in this extension of the warning or continuation of the warning until 1:30, with the threats being some high wind, possibly up to 60 miles per hour. And still the possibility of maybe a brief spin-up tornado along this area of rain. And it's not very heavy rain, but it is an area of rain where you get a burst of wind coming out of it. And occasionally that burst of wind can produce some brief spin-up tornadoes. We'll look at the velocity data because that way we can kind of spot if anything suspicious is going on within that area of rain across Lake County. Here's the velocity data. First, we'll start in Kenosha County, where you can see the threat there for a tornado is kind of decreasing because we're not really seeing the jagged edge along the wind gust line like we were a few moments ago. So that's actually a really good sign. And it does look some of the worst of the winds starting to push out over the lake. Now our focus draws our attention down here into parts of Lake County, right along that leading edge of that heavy rain. And as I go in closer on the radar, right over towards Old Mill Lake, over towards Wedges Corner, Gages Lake, just outside of Grays Lake, right in this zone here, you kind of have to look at it kind of closely to see if there's any rotation. And I'm not saying there's any sign of anything spinning up here, but there are still a few notches right in this general zone up towards the Wadsworth area as well. So if you live here in Gages Lake over towards Gurnee, up towards Wadsworth, I would just go into your safe area of your house and let this storm pass on by, just because the possibility is there that there could be a brief spin-up tornado. It wouldn't be a tornado that would, level your house or anything like that, but it could do some tree damage, and of course it could possibly, impact a tree that could impact your house. So you don't want to be anywhere close to a window in a situation like this where you could get some really high winds that also can come with the concern for maybe a brief spin-up tornado. The line itself extends as we continue to monitor it all the way down into LaSalle County, but the only warnings we have are up here across the far northern suburbs into parts of southern Wisconsin. That little sliver still under the tornado warning here until 1:15. There it is, and then the 1:30 severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Lake County as well. Looking farther to the south at the wind gusts, because we've seen some pretty high winds. We're still seeing those winds above 25 to 30 miles per hour out ahead of the rain, and then right along that area of rain, which extends all the way down here to the south and west, you get the gusts upwards of 40, 45, maybe even some 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts as it blows on through. The other thing, which Tracy and I have been talking about throughout the course of this event here, is just how low top these thunderstorms are, and they're not even going up to 20,000 feet. But there's a lot of wind energy within the atmosphere right now, and sometimes that wind energy can kind of translate into some very gusty winds down to the surface and occasionally some spin up tornadoes as well. So Tracy, we're watching that spot right here still in Kenosha County. The good news is it looks like the worst of that storm has now kind of shifted out over the lake, and just by looking at the radar presentation here, you know, where we've seen these brief spin ups on the velocity data and on the radar data have been right along here over the leading edge of the rain. And now that is over the lake. It looks like the tornado threat here in Kenosha County is dropping off very quickly. Now down from Winthrop Harbor to Zion, stretching down towards Waukegan, and then just down to the south and west, it still continues with a high wind threat. And just as I was saying, the threat for a tornado expired in Kenosha County, the Weather Service went ahead and dropped the warning. So the box will fall off here in a few moments. But nonetheless, no more warnings for Kenosha County. We still have the severe thunderstorm warning here for Lake County until 1:30. And just looking at the velocity data here across Lake County, let's go back to that just because we want to keep an eye on what we're seeing in this area. I'm going to look at a couple different radars. I'm going to look at our radar. I'll look at the National Weather Service radar. That's the benefit of having a lot of radars to take a peek at, because you can get a sense of kind of what we're seeing here. And here's one velocity data radar that, again, shows a little jaggedness to the gust front with the rain. That's where you get the push of wind out. And you would like to see it be a consistent kind of straight line. That would, you know, it'd still produce some gusty winds, but you wouldn't have a tornado threat. Because it still looks a little jagged here, there's still that possibility of maybe a brief little spin up along that gust front of wind that's coming out with this rain. So we still have to keep our eyes on here. But Tracy, I kind of like what I'm seeing here, because there's nothing that's really tightened up too much that would indicate a tornado is imminent. But you just have to be aware that if you're out here towards Zion, Waukegan, North Chicago, down towards Lake Forest, you're going to get the winds to pick up, and there's an outside chance, it's a low chance, but there's an outside chance you could have a brief spin up tornado at least nearby as this line comes through.
And the Weather Service talked about that, how with this sort of setup, a lot of times there can be very little warning or a last minute warning that we do get with some of these little spin ups. But I did want to point out to you, and Larry's been talking about this line right here. So here's the leading edge from about Waukegan, and then it is almost moving in towards Shanahan. So if we time that out, and I'm showing you this because I want you to have an idea of when you can expect maybe some of those stronger wind gusts, they're coming our way, and we will continue to monitor the situation. Of course, we'll have all the updates for you on our newscasts beginning on ABC 7 News at 4 o'clock. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you soon.
This has been an ABC 7 AccuWeather update from Eyewitness News.